And I think because of the world building, Jupiter Ascending feels the need to be very complicated. Just like the idea, just pulling this out of a hat, the idea that like the human race existed on another planet and came to terraform Earth, and in order to do so, they had to kill all the dinosaurs.
Welcome to Certain Point of View's Another Pass podcast. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. Just go to certainpov.com.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Another Pass podcast. I am Case Aiken. As always, I am joined by my co-host, Sam Alisea.
Hi everyone!
And we have a returning guest today. We've got CeeJay coming from the Below Freezing podcast.
Hello, how are you?
Welcome, CeeJay!
Thanks for having me back on.
And CeeJay, you were recently talking on Below Freezing about a movie that you thought was really fascinating, but flawed, which is the MO of the show. And as soon as you mentioned it, I was like, yeah. Why haven't we talked about this yet? Oh, it's because no guests has wanted to talk about it. So I reached out to you being like, hey, you want to come on? Because I really want to talk about this movie. So today we are talking about Jupiter Ascending.
Yeah, Jupiter Ascending. I saw this movie for the first time on a date, and my date had no idea what was happening, like from when Channing Tatum showed up for the first time to like the end of the movie. And I sat there sort of in awe of this thing because it came out. Did it come out in 2015 or 2014? It came out around there.
I want to say 2014.
Yeah. So it comes out.
Oh no, it was the winter of 2015. It was February, so it was like right before I moved from New York.
Nice. Okay. So it comes out in the midst of like I think the height of a multiplex having 14 screens, and 12 of those screens are being filled by giant blockbuster IP, right? And this thing comes out and it is big and weird and but it features big stars and it has real money behind it and it's sort of just doing what it wants. And I am always a sucker for that kind of thing happening just because it doesn't happen as often as I would like. And if there's any movie to describe as swings for the fences, it's definitely Jupiter Ascending.
Oh yeah.
So I was I'm excited to discuss it.
It is definitely a very ambitious work. And it is, I actually think that my biggest criticism of this work is that I feel that sometimes the characters get lost in the ambition of the story, right? Like it's like this world building that is kind of incredible, right? Like the scope of it. Like this would actually make like a really great series, like a really great show, so that you could actually give the characters.
I have that exact thought.
Yeah.
I had that thought with this watch.
So that you could give these characters room to breathe. But the between the costumes, which are some of the most incredible costumes I think created for film, between the costumes, the special effects, the spaceships. I'm a sucker for anything with spaceships, and at like just like all of the elements and all of the elements that I would love. Like it checks all of my boxes, and still I did not love this film. It is an okay film, but I was not, like, I was like, female protagonist, check. She becomes a queen, check. Wonderful costumes, check. What is that, like air blades, I guess we would call them? They're like roller blades for the sky.
Yeah.
like awesome. Like that's great. And there's all these like different alien species and like, and there's this whole like feeling that this world is very complete outside of, and so they did a really good job with world building, just not with the characters in the world, if that makes sense.
I agree with you on the characters, and it's mostly due to the actual character of Jupiter Jones, played by Mila Kunis.
Agreed.
However, I think there is a way to read this movie in which the sort of flatness of her character makes sense. To me.
Go on.
Because, you know, you get all these movies and these stories about chosen ones and stuff like that, and how they have, you know, they're destined for greatness. You know, some of us have greatness thrust upon us or whatever. And then they have to rise to the occasion and be the hero that whatever the land or universe or whatever needs. And I so enjoy that Jupiter Jones is the most basic bitch in the history of the world. I so enjoy that this is a movie about a chosen one, and the chosen one is just kind of a derp. Like, it is because, you know, it's the way that, you know, you tell people not to look at Instagram and judge their own life by what they see on Instagram. Everybody's not gonna be, you know, the hero. Everybody's not going to be the chosen one. Everybody's not going to be the one who saves the day. Some of us are just getting by. And Juniper Jones is a person whose whole life is just about getting by. And then she's thrust into this intergalactic intrigue. But she doesn't, like, it doesn't change her, because most people are who they are when they're adults. It doesn't really change her at all. She's just kind of like, sure, fine.
See, but one of my biggest problems is that she's like that. Like, seriously, like I kept thinking, like, okay, so this is what really annoyed me. I wish that they had in the beginning been like, oh, Jupiter, like, you don't give a shit about anything, right? Because that's really how she is, right? But, like, they, like, make this whole point in the first few scenes with her family to just be like, oh, Jupiter doesn't trust anyone, and she's, like, she's just so hard, and she'll never fall in love because she doesn't trust anyone. That boy was on that planet for how long? And she was like, okay, I'll go with you. And then, like, she ended up on a spaceship, and the woman was like, I'm on your side. And, like, when he came, he was just like, I'll save you, Jupiter. She's like, no, she's on our side. And then jumped to, like, the next ship, and she's agreeing to marry this other dude. And then jumped to the last guy.
Like, so instantly.
Yeah, like, there's actually no proof that she never trusts anyone, ever. Like, that is the one line that needs to be strict. Like, I think, like, if she's just gonna be like, Jupiter, I wish you had some ambition. Like, why are you such a basic bitch? Like, why do you just wait for pumpkin spice lattes? Like, why don't you have ambition in your life? Like, all you want is a telescope? That's it? That would have been fine. But she doesn't trust anyone. She's hard. No, she's not. She's not. She trusts everyone.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't disagree with anything that you said. I just am, again, I don't think that, like, that reading that I have of the movie is completely supported by the text, but it is very much supported. It was very much supported by, like, how funny her reactions are. It is very much, I think, supported by Mila Kunis's actual performance.
Yes.
There's
definitely a disconnect there.
Where she has to, like, break a space tablet or something like that, and she kind of just throws it down on the ground, like if she she just touched a hot pot from a stove or something. She's just like, and she just, like, tosses it down with no, like, regard to, you know, what that is actually going to do, how it's going to affect anything that happens. She's kind of just there. And I'm not saying that that's good. I'm saying that it's funny. And that's part of the reason that I enjoy it.
But I think, getting back to the earlier point, I think that it would be even funnier if this was an ongoing.
Yes.
Like Jupiter Jones could feel like a Flash Gordon type character, like a human trapped in a world of aliens. Mm-hmm. And this world is certainly rich enough for that kind of story, and, like, for a lot. But this movie tries to jam, like, a season of a TV show into a 2 or 3 hour movie. Like, there's so much that happens, and they thus don't spend nearly enough time with any of it. That despite the fact that this movie is very long, it just feels like we're just not getting enough time for any of the things that are important, which includes, like, Jupiter Jones having, like, a real arc.
Yeah, she doesn't have any agency.
Yeah.
She doesn't even have a reckoning with, like, the fact that she's, like, in space and has been kidnapped, or it's just kind of like, what, this is happening? And they're like, yeah. And she's like, okay, I own Earth? Cool. All right. Like, she even gets annoyed at the bureaucracy. Like, Like, instead of just being, like, confused and, like, amazed by everything, she's just like, this is dumb. Why am I here? it's, it's actually really funny. Yeah.
Well, I mean, in that scene, the bureaucracy is so heavy with tape that even a robot gets frustrated and starts bribing people.
Yeah, which I found funny. I basically like that entire scene. There are things about this movie, I think character-wise, world-building-wise, and plot-wise, that I find very, very strong. But, like, it doesn't really stick the landing, especially in the back half. The back half kind of just... Have you ever been carrying several things, and then one thing falls, and then everything else subsequently starts to fall, and you're trying to like keep hold of all of the stuff before everything in your hands completely hits the ground? That's kind of what happens at the end of this movie. It kind of felt like it didn't know where to go, and I think that your observation about it feeling like a TV show or like a season of a TV show is very interesting, because part of me likes that it sort of has all of this stuff going on, but it wraps itself up at the end, because it feels like the movie Krull to me. And Krull is like this space fantasy fairy tale that came out sort of in the aftermath of Star Wars, and it is generally like the movie Excalibur, but it's on a planet that has aliens and stuff, but all the aliens seem to be based on like European myths of some sort. And it is also throwing a lot at you. It's very but I think the thing that makes Krull work more than this is that Krull's story is very simple. And I think because of the world building, Jupiter Ascending feels the need to be very complicated. Just like the idea, just pulling this out of a hat, the idea that like the human race existed on another planet and came to terraform Earth, and in order to do so, they had to kill all the dinosaurs. That is, I feel like that's not a throwaway thing. Especially when you have like lizard creatures. And because all it did was make me think, so are the lizard guard alien folks like descendants of the dinosaurs? And there are pockets of stuff like that sent my mind into other places, and I wasn't paying attention to the movie anymore or what was happening inside the actual story. I was trying to dig into the world, and I think that has a lot to do with what you said about like characterization, which I think hinges on Jupiter, but nobody else is doing any heavy lifting. I think characterization, the performances, is doing a lot of heavy lifting, especially with the supporting cast, because of Channing Tatum and his stern albino half-wolf alien person, and then Eddie Redmayne and his
That was a choice. It was a choice. He stuck to the choice. It was a choice.
It was a choice, yes.
I mean,
but I think there's a few things that this movie could have done really without changing much that would have made it a much more enjoyable experience and a weirder experience, because it is weird. It does have a lot going on, but I think it could be a tiny bit more absurd, a tiny bit more wackadoo, and a lot of the stuff that we've been complaining about would be forgiven.
well, I think...
Yeah, like, I think you brought up a really good point by comparing it with, like, general fantasy lore, like, being like Excalibur. Because this is ultimately about a knight-errant, like, saving a princess. Mm-hmm. And, like, even the last act is, like, we're going to basically lay siege to, like, this, like, Hellfire Kingdom or, like, a Mordor kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it has all the tropes. He's fighting a literal dragon at the end.
Yes,
like
yes,
it is just, yeah, I mean, he's got an actual shield. Like no one feels like, no, I mean, because there's this like feudal kind of structure to it, like this very Dune like kind of like world that they're setting up that currently exists. It can't help but feel like a medieval story here. And so there are plenty of tropes that we could work with that don't need to be excised from this to be like, yeah, it was perfectly fine. But like, I think by the time we get to the end, it, like you said, it got so complicated in terms of like, well, what are the stakes? What will happen to things? Like, how does this all work? And like, there are so many that like catch you, and like you have to take a moment to like process the line, like the throwaway about the dinosaurs. I definitely missed that the first time, and I'm like, I don't remember them saying that at all. And then this time I was watching, I was like, wait, did he just say that they killed the dinosaurs? What? And then I had to like start thinking about like the timeline for things and how the whole process works, because I don't know. It's a really interesting world they set up.
Yeah.
But it keeps stopping me to make me think about the sci-fi tropes that they're using, which is preventing me from like really digging just how like simple a story, and how like fast everyone's emotions fall into the beats of that story. Like Jupiter is really into Kane very fast, and I get it. He just saved her from like crazy like flying spaceships and all that, and like it was a dope ass action scene, and her heart's probably beating, you know, like faster than like a hummingbird's wings can flap, but like she's in love with him real quick.
Also,
Yeah,
he
real quick.
also is a alien person with flying boots who looks like Channing Tatum, and Channing Tatum is hot. And there's been a real weird sort of reappraisal of Channing Tatum on the internet recently, where they're just like, was Channing Tatum ever hot? Yes, of course he was. And anybody who tells you he wasn't is lying to you. But I get it. Like, again, she's basic. She doesn't have a lot going on. A shirtless man who's got like fucking elf ears and rides the sky. Of course.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
But I completely agree with you that like it falling in with the beats of the story does, again, make things sort of a foregone conclusion, and they could have a little bit more conflict. They don't actually have a conflict together. That's something I noticed this time going around. They don't.
Oh yeah, I have
fight
notes about that. Like, that's a
She
big
has
thing
no
that I want to talk
conflict.
about.
The person with trust issues has no trust issues. None.
Neither one of them. They both. The text says both of them have trust issues. Like, Kane doesn't like the entitled. Is the thing that they say about him, and he has like one throwaway line of being like, "You should have told me," and like that's it. Like, he's never mad at her after that point, and that would have given him something to do for about half the movie, and instead he's just like shows up to save her from shit 3 fucking separate times.
From all the people she trusts,
or 4 or 5, yeah, like. Every arc of this, and like this would just be, if this was fucking Power Rangers, Kane showing up to save the day would be them calling the Megazord. It's going to happen every time, and it plays out the exact same way. And it's cool scenes. I fucking love them. I will watch that shit all over again. But like it never, like, it doesn't change it up, and we never have like different emotional beats for it. It's just Kane really wants to protect her, so he shows up and he protects her.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not much to do for these two leads, to be honest with you. Even in the script, there's not a lot for them to do. Like, and the script has other information that the script doesn't follow up on. Like, the script doesn't follow its own text, which is almost worse than an actor disregarding the text.
Also, this movie is woefully deficient of any of the extreme horniness that the production design is, I feel like, calling for.
I agree.
And like, nobody really is playing it up performance-wise. I do think that line is very funny, where he's like, I'm more dog than person, and she's like, I love dogs. I've always loved dogs. That was funny to me in the trailers before the movie came out. That was it is funny to me every time I watch this thing. But I think that there's something missing in the way that they behave toward one another, because we understand that they have to get together. Like, the movie sets that up pretty well. It's just that you don't really see why. Like, they don't even get an enemies to lovers thing, which I think the stuff about his character not turning not liking entitles or whatever was supposed to set up. It all just sort of.
Don't spoil my pitch. Those are literal words I have.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I apologize. But like, yeah, I just wish there was a little bit more time spent, again, making a little bit more time spent characterizing Jupiter in a way that would have been narratively satisfying by the end, because it just kind of wasn't.
I did like the villains. Oh, and I want to say something positive. I did like the villains.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. I enjoyed them, and I enjoyed the plot of the fact that, you know, it's like this very rich family that basically rules over the universes, several universes, many planets, and they kind of treat them like commodities. They're property. They're something that they own, and that the beings that are on these planets, they really view them as cattle and basically just tools for their life. And I thought one of the best lines was when the three immortals were together, and the younger brother, or I assume he's younger because it's played by the younger actor. The younger brother asks his sister if she's ever seen a culling, if she's ever seen, you know, what is done to actually create what she bathes in to keep her young. And she's just like, no, but I hear it's very humane. I thought that was like really great. There are like certain statements in this that kind of do what good sci-fi is supposed to do and kind of point to issues in society. So it does attempt to do that. It does do that. It did get that across on some level. I don't know if it's like 100% efficient because there's so much happening. I think the problem is there's just so much happening. Like this movie has so much to say. But I want to give like props to that, because I think that like it is a good fantasy story, and there are ways that it upholds good sci-fi lessons, science fiction, fantasy lessons. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, I wanted to take a step back and look at the world building, and that they're perfect examples of that. Like, the world building is so nice, especially up front. And I love that. So, it's hard not to make a Matrix comparison with the Wachowskis, and because structurally this movie is the Matrix, in that she lives in a world that she's not seen, that the real world is a layer separate from the world that she's currently in, and that, like, all the way that they first like make contact, like all the agents and so forth feel like, I even just said agents, and I wasn't intending to be the agent. Like, they are, like, they're effectively the agents. They're the controlling influences that are sort of manipulating society. They're able to wipe people's brains. They're all this stuff like ultimately comes together to feel like a Matrix world. It's just, instead of it being a computer simulation, it is effectively a terrarium that we all live inside of.
Yeah.
But what I think is really fascinating, and the key difference between the Matrix and this, is that this is a Matrix that we put ourselves into. It is a world where humanity has gotten to the point where, like, we are harvesting ourselves for our own survival. And I think that's really, like, a really interesting and gross situation for humanity to be in. And I love it. It, you know, it's really heavy-handed with the whole, like, this is capitalism unbound to the point where it effectively becomes feudalism, because there is, like, some kind of government, but the people who are so rich don't need to worry about that.
Yeah.
They effectively have their fiefdoms, they have their domains, they have their vassals, and, like, there's, like, again, it's like all pyramid structured, where we have people at the top who have then underlings who are also very powerful in their society, and they have underlings who are less powerful, and then go on and so forth until eventually we just get to humans being cattle. And that's really cool. And it's a classic sci-fi thing. It feels like the Morlocks in the Time Machine, like raising up other humans to be their food. Spoiler for the Time Machine if you haven't read 120-year-old book. Sorry.
Sorry, everyone. Spoiler.
But in the far future of the Time Machine, one group of humans starts eating another group of humans, and that's their cattle. And it's like that without the post-apocalypse part. This is like, all right, we just go on, and eventually, like, we don't care about ourselves at all. Like, this is a society that has stripped away the actual humanity from it, in favor of just profit. But that profit is this, like, weird concept of time.
Yeah, profit and vanity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because all they're doing is pouring it into like a jacuzzi so they can have a stem cell bath every like 1,000 years.
Yeah, it's probably not even the most efficient use of that.
But yeah, I mean,
Do you have other proposals? You're gonna go to the Galactic Senate, like
Yeah, like a de-aging sponge thing.
I'm pretty sure you're gonna have to fill out several forms in order to get
yes.
that proposal
and get your
taken
patent.
up.
Yeah.
But you're gonna have to show your tax bat and get your tax code first. So.
Oh man, I'm actually very excited to see what your pitches are and how differently they or how different they make the movie that we have. Because one, I agree with Sam in that it's very long. It's incredibly long. And two, I agree that there's entirely too much going on. But also, I had a hard time trying to figure out what I would take away, because I think so much of it is so interesting. But the time is not used very well.
Oh, yeah.
In the way that those things are doled out.
Listen, I'm with you. I don't think anyone should be excited about my pitch, because this was actually a really hard one for me in particular, because it's not that I loved this film. Like, it's not like I'm like, oh my God, guys, this was a great film. Because it wasn't. But there are so many elements that I really liked. And I like, when I went to this movie, because I saw this in the theater, I wanted to like this. Like, I was rooting for this movie. Like, I wanted this movie to be the thing, right? And it was really hard, because I really like a lot of what they did with this universe. I like a lot of what, it's just, there's just too much going on. So when I was sitting there trying to think of it, I was just like, but what would I cut? But what wouldn't I do? Like, how do I make it succinct? And like, I think that's the challenge. How do you edit it down and then add small bits so that you can get a little of a character arc, you know?
Yeah.
Especially between the leads. Like, the leads really, honestly, I found a lot of the background characters a lot more interesting. And I found myself being like, I wonder what that character's like on their home planet.
Like Ganesh, the elephant man? Or, pardon me, just Nesh.
Yeah.
Oh, can we talk for a second just about how everyone who isn't a main character has a name that is just like whatever animal they are? like, and even Channing Tatum,
Yeah, Kane.
Like, they spell it out like Canis.
Yeah, I'm gonna say they weren't very creative with the names in any case. Like, even Jupiter's name is alliteration. She's Jupiter Jones. Like,
Yeah, I think there's something really pulpy about that, though. Mm-hmm. And then
Yeah, again, she feels like a Flash Gordon type.
Yeah.
But just gender flipped.
yeah. Or, you know, like,
So-
just, this is like a very, like, J.K. Rowling, like, I'm just gonna name everything exactly what it means.
Again, I really like this world. I do. I keep coming back on Kane, where I can't tell. I feel like he's in this like uncanny valley of prosthetics, where it like a little bit less, and I would be like, yeah, that's a beautiful Channing Tatum right there, and maybe a little bit more, and he would feel a little bit less. I don't know. There's just like something kind of off, and I guess maybe that's the albino thing that they're also trying to do on top of everything else. Like, I kept thinking about gargoyles in this, and I was like, well, what if he had like more like grayish kind of skin or something to like further deviate him from humans, but without making him less pretty, you know?
Yeah.
Like, we don't need to go like full on like Ron Perlman, like the Beast or like Beauty and the Beast kind of design.
Yeah.
Well, no, you gotta keep him pretty. You gotta keep him pretty.
Right, yeah, I gotta keep him pretty. Because like I feel like they lean a little bit too much into this kind of like he's got like kind of like a gimp fetish kind of look to him, with this like tight leather going on, and then like the exposed shoulders, and then you get this like the elf stuff, and like because all the space stuff has this like fey quality to it, because it's like just outside of our line of sight, and like there's like these courts and kingdoms and so forth. You know, there's a lot of like fairy kind of imagery going on. He's got the pointed ears, and he can like float around, and he used to have wings. You know, we find out. So like I kind of want either like a little bit more or like a little bit less, but like right now he's I don't know. It's like a little. He feels a little bit too much like late '90s style.
Listen, if they
2015
made him
movie.
gray, like or a bluish gray, like a dark elf, that still works for girls. It would be fine. Like,
Yeah.
Works for
It- and
CJ's too, not gonna lie.
it works for CJ's. CJ approved. But honestly, like that would have been. I actually like that idea because this is primarily a fantasy film, and so it would have been kind of cool to have him be. I mean, who doesn't love a dark elf?
I also think in terms of the production design, I think the production design is so cool. There's lots of interesting shapes and lines that go into all of the different halls and the spaceships and things like that. The costume design was at its best when it was on Eddie Redmayne.
Yeah.
And
He had the best capes.
he had the best capes. And like there's also back to the movie needing to be a smidge more horny. The not to take it there, but
No, by all means, take it there.
I think that the aliens, no one was barely anyone was showing enough skin. I think that like because of the way that the spaceships were designed, the shapes were very flowy. There was a lot of spaces in between. I thought that like the clothing would match it. And I'm not talking like in the Citadel part where they're like doing the bureaucracy scene where everybody has to like go through. But even though you can see on like the robot bureaucrat person that's taking them around, he's even like the design of his head even has that same motif going with the spaces. Everything's very sharp. I want to find another way to say shapes, but the shapes are very stringy and flowy. They feel like garments, almost. You can tell the design in the way that the buildings are formed, in especially Douglas Booth. What was his character? He was the son that was trying to marry his reincarnated mom.
Oh, Titus.
Yeah,
Titus.
Titus.
His spaceship in particular was very much like shared this motif, and it looks where everything sort of looks like different angles of seeing the rings of a planet. And I thought that the clothes might be more like that, and the clothes were like that on Eddie Redmayne, but everybody else was just wearing like Met Gala gowns and shit.
That spaceship was really cool, first of all. But I have to say that like they did do like a little like peek at him kind of like in midst orgy, but like with not very like orgy like it was very tight on his face with like a cup like
People
maybe
were
like the
floating
top of
around
his
each
chest.
other and moaning.
And there were like a couple of heads near his head, and then there were just some body parts that you could kind of sort of see, and it made it look like they were like, you know, like he was just in a pool of people, which was fine, but it was very close, so you couldn't really tell what was going on. And that's about as sexy as this movie got, because you're right, there wasn't a lot in it. Like there was like maybe the one scene early on with I can't remember her name, the female, the older sister who likes to be looks like she's Kalik. And she's heading into the bath to basically show the rejuvenation and like the power of it. And that's about it. And then you get like a couple of kisses towards the end. One during a battle scene, which always bugs me, because I always think, stop! You running for your lives. I understand why people are doing it, like the heightened emotion, but like my brain always goes into panic mode. Like, guys, people are trying to kill you.
They were actively being shot at.
Yeah. Like, people are trying to kill you. Like, move. Like, I don't know why I feel like I'm in that moment. I'm like, excuse me, lovebirds, get a room. Like, you know, when this is done, I'll pay for it. But
Fuck, she could pay for it. She's rich.
well, I mean,
She
she
owns
only
the earth.
owns human chattel. And she's not trading it in. So I don't know how rich she actually is.
I also think that the human chattel thing was a little heavy for the tone.
Oh yeah, there were definitely moments where it's just like, oh yeah, this is just about consumerism. Like it's gotten real bad.
Yeah, I like part of the the thing was that like 100 human beings or 1,000 human beings had to be killed to create like a block of the space stem cells.
Yeah, it was 100.
It was 100.
And then she dropped them.
Yeah, and that was a lot. I feel like that's a lot to throw in a movie like that.
Again, this movie has really big ideas. Like, it's got huge ideas and not enough time to deal with the repercussions of those ideas, right? Like, yes, Jupiter holds it in her hands. She realizes how many dead human souls or whatever essence they collect is in that vial. And then she drops it. And then she's even more upset because she's dropped it. And he's like, it's fine. It's cool. And I actually didn't mind that moment because I was like, well, that's like, that felt...
That's how he would behave, yeah.
That's like the most real moment of this film, probably. But there's not enough to like really dissect what they're actually trying to say. These are like grand ideas. These are huge ideas, right? This is like subjugation and using people as a monetary, like not just for money. Like these people aren't just like commerce. They're literally bred for the purpose that eventually these aliens will come around and harvest a planet and just wipe out people so that
just
they
to
can
squish
stay young.
them and use them as like fucking eye cream or whatever.
Exactly. And so like, there's something that's like a very big, feeling there. It's not just a commentary on capitalism, although it is, but it's also a commentary on just like ethics and, the 1% and people who don't have empathy and don't have compassion and become so dissected. And if you live a long time, can you still have that compassion? Like at one point he said, my mother never cleaned toilets. And she said, well, maybe that's the problem. Like this disconnect of what is hard labor, of what is like everyday things, of understanding others and empathizing with them, because there's so much going on in this movie, you just have a bunch of like throwaway lines that are trying to get to the root and the heart of it, but it doesn't always connect because there's so much else going on.
Yeah, there's too many ideas.
And they're good, but they're just a lot.
Mm-hmm. Can we talk about this is part of the thesis of the piece, but it's a smaller part of the world, which is Jupiter's family back home.
Yeah.
Can we talk about those bitches?
So like we
I have real feelings about that family.
Well, we've got this very heavy-handed metaphor of her like selling her eggs and being like kind of uncomfortable about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Which is I think fine, but the pressure and then like this recurring thing with her cousin who like set it all up and did the very heavy-handed like that's capitalism. Like I make like profits go up.
Yeah.
The fact that we keep coming back to him and that like he almost gets punished for not having the money, never resolved by the way.
Nope.
Like is unnecessary. Like every time we cut back to the family back at home, I was like, I don't care about any of this. Like why are we seeing this? It was good to set them up at the beginning as having stakes for her like that are more immediate than just her species. And like we can set up some of the themes that are going to be played out on a broader scale. But after that it was just like I don't need to see this, and like it's perfectly fine to come back to them when they are kidnapped and used as hostages. Like fine there, but like I don't need to see any time spent being like, what the fuck's going to go on with this TV that we bought? It's so big. Like way too much.
Yeah. The family didn't do much for me because they didn't have any sort of redeeming factor that would lead me to believe that Jupiter would care about them going forward or have any extreme sort of like positive feelings towards them. Like if that older cousin had shown some support for whatever Jupiter had going on, but also that raises the question, what did Jupiter have going on? or
She wanted to buy a telescope, and I thought she wanted to buy it for her mom, and then at the end, the mom gets it for her?
The whole family
Yeah.
pitches in and buys it for her. The whole
Right, no,
family.
I know it's the whole family, but like, I thought she was buying it for her mom because it was a thing about her dad, and it's not a thing that she ever personally saw.
yeah. That's something that doesn't make a ton of sense. Also, you get like the mom finds out about her wanting to buy the telescope 2 acts into the movie, and by that time it doesn't really mean anything because then they have to get kidnapped.
But at the end, when she finally gets it, I'm like, who cares now?
Yeah.
Like, you've been to space.
Right, like you're not staring up at the stars anymore. You can probably call down a fleet of people to take you up there. You are still the owner of Earth. Like, you clearly still have connection to space. Yeah, no, the family didn't do a lot for me, to be honest with you. I actually, like, when he was just like, they've got your family, I almost thought, so?
Right.
Which felt very callous, but I was just like, what did her family actually do? Like, her uncle just would sit at the table and belittle her and tell her that she would never pay him back, and I don't know.
And all she wants is shoes or something like that. And we don't know. Maybe Jupiter asked for some money for shoes before the movie started. I don't know. But it is super dismissive. And you know who they could have kidnapped, and that would have been like, oh, what's Jupiter gonna do? The bees. If they had kidnapped the bees. the bees did more for Jupiter than her family it did in the movie.
Heck, Sean Bean's daughter did more for Jupiter than her family.
Yeah. Also, there's this thing where Sean Bean... Did they ever explain why Sean Bean's daughter was sick?
They named some, like, space disease, like she's like the equivalent of the gout, but like he named it as something, and that's it. Like, I don't know. He was like, she's got the cough or something.
She's got space gout.
Yeah, that's my official word. She's got space gout, and no, they definitely said something, but it sounded like he was like, she's got the cough, blah 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 blah, and she does cough like in one scene as she's like walking off, and it leads you to believe that this is like something that's like deadly and that like the immortals could fix. Mm-hmm. So he made this deal so that she could be rejuvenated and it could be fixed. But it's probably just gout.
But it's just a space gout. Oh boy.
As one gets,
Yeah.
when you're living on Earth.
Gotta watch out for that space gout.
I mean, thinking about this movie, I keep coming around to being like, I really like all the stuff that are going into it as like an intellectual exercise. Like, doing this like feudal structure and like I said, these like sort of like fantasy fae elements to everything, but it's actually just super advanced humans. I enjoy that. I enjoy the idea of like harvesting people as a like not.
Is there something you'd like to tell us?
Because relish, but it's like it's a suitably fucked up kind of thing.
This is the wrong crowd to say that in front of. Go on.
Like it's a suitably fucked up thing as an evil motivation and being used as like this heavy-handed metaphor for capitalism. Like I think this is all fine stuff that they're doing here. I think there's all this like sci-fi design work that like you can see that they love anime and you can see the things that they really enjoy going into it. Like I said, the design work is great. I think that there's annoying elements that are like super close to my pitch if I'm ever allowed to make a Wildcats movie. Like the things I would do to sort of like make that particular setting work. So it's like frustrating for me looking at it and being like, oh yeah, they did those kind of things. And it's not that they're that original. It's just that they're like taking this like whole mishmash of like sci-fi concepts and making it all fit together into this movie. I love all of that. And then I don't care about the characters that much. And like, that's it. Like it's just so much is happening and I don't have the heart. I don't like, I barely remember the character names. It's sure, her name's Jupiter, and it's hard to forget that one because the title of the piece is Jupiter Ascending. But it's Mila Kunis, and like I have to keep reminding myself that Channing Tatum, the dog man, is named Kane because it's just Channing Tatum. Like all of this is like they're playing out this grand operatic thing, but I kind of care about the character elements and like the actual like story that they're telling the way I care about like watching a friend's kid in a high school play. Like, yeah, but But that's sort of that. But I love the set design. I love all the work they're doing. They're doing such a good job, guys.
It's also very level video game-ish when it comes to the bad guys and Jupiter hanging out with them, right? So she hangs out with the woman, and then she gets kidnapped, and she hangs out with the younger guy, and then she's with Eddie Redmayne. Like, it's like there's no point that any of them, like, they just give up. Like, it's just like, oh, well, my sister has him, my brother has him now, so I can't do anything about it. Oh, well, marriage didn't work. Darn. I guess I don't need that Earth. Like, which I think, like, I was just like, I get it. Like, Eddie Redmayne, like, his character is supposed to be, like, the baddest of the bad, and he feels that, like, he's entitled to this because it's what he got for his mother when his mother passed away, and now that she's back, you know. And he also has a lovely, very confusing thing where he just keeps talking to Jupiter as if, even though she's a reincarnation, as if she has all the memories of his mother, which I thought was actually pretty interesting in the script. Again, like, they don't really spend that much time together, so it's not, you know, it's not something that's, like, integral. And again, just like everything else, it becomes a couple of really amazing lines in the midst of a longer saga. And so, you know, like, there's some edible themes here. I mean, like, even with Tristan wanting to marry her, I mean, yes, it's for property, but it is the reincarnation of his mother. The fact that Redmayne is constantly talking to her as if that's his mom, and there is almost the way that he plays it, kind of like this sad, romantic, like, you asked me to do it, like, you were miserable, you asked me to do it, like this huge sacrifice that he had made for the love of his mother, and all he wants is her property. I mean, just sign it over, so I can harvest all the people you know. And this goes back to just not being sexy enough. I mean, like, I don't necessarily think moms and sons getting together is sexy, but this is a missed opportunity to add some creepiness that they just kind of shied away from because there's too much going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, this movie kind of needs the rave scene from Matrix Reloaded. Like, just a big orgy that we see a lot of, not just a close-up on one person. Like, Titus's ship should have just been, like, a full-on fuckboat. Like, everyone's just traveling around, like, just, like, all the rich people on it are just, like, going to town, and then, like, there's, like, servants who are, like, kind of, like...
wiping down the floors and stuff.
Stepping in with water bottles. Exactly.
Absolutely. That would have been hilarious, actually.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I'm going to save that for when we get to the pitch stuff. But, yeah, I agree.
Just mopping down floors.
Yeah.
Sighing when something goes flying across the room, a sex toy. Just all these wonderful deleted scenes of just people cleaning up after their mess.
Yeah, like, Jupiter arrives on the ship, and there's, like, this, like, all these, like, pedestal or, like, podiums or something that she's, like, walking by, and it looks like a museum, and she's like, what's this? And it's like, that's for your butt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
I wonder who does keep all of this stuff clean. It was funny. They were in the palace of the sister, where they go see the statue of the mom, and she's got all those candles. And whenever I see a bunch of nonsense on the floor, whether it be candles, it could be like some romantic scene in a movie where there's like rose petals. I don't know. Maybe it's turning 26 and past that point. I've just always been like, who's gonna clean that up?
It's true, though.
Whose responsibility is this? Every single candle that was on the floor.
And you know they got to change those candles out, right? Because you know those are always lit, right? So there's someone that has to come through, figure out which ones have melted, scrape it off the floor, replace it with a new candle, light it. Like, that person, it's probably a tiny dinosaur, to be honest with you.
Like a little Compsognathus, like, running out.
Yeah.
With its tiny little finger.
Listen, this movie is kind of like a fanfic writer's dream, because there's, like, so not a lot going on with the characters, but so much about the world. So you can basically, like, warp these characters to anything you
my
want.
God. The Kane Titus section of An Archive of Our Own must be gargantuous. Gargantuan. It's just like, oh my God. It's so big I came up with a new word for it, gargantuous. It is like it has to be huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Case is like, okay, well. He's like, these two are not allowed to speak anymore to each other.
No, I'm here for it. I'm like, all right, well, I don't know what I can more contribute, or what's the best dirty joke I can make from this. I don't know.
Just saying.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we're all in agreement. Like, man, there needs to be more fucking going on in this.
There was a piece that came out, and I think the writer's name is R.S. Benedict, about modern blockbusters and their like extreme lack of sexiness. Like there are a lot of people who are in peak physical condition all over these blockbusters and all over, you know, mainstream film but nobody in the films is having sex. And nobody in the films, like, people hitting on each other is, like, perfunctory or feels weird. Or, like, it comes off weird. Because we don't see that. And I've been watching recently a lot of movies from before the year 2000. Where I don't know what happened, like, before the year 2000. But it seemed like before then, everybody wanted to fuck each other all of the time. And now in movies, everyone is just sort of there to speak to each other and get a box. And there's like outside forces who want the box and they got to keep the box, but then they lose the box and the outside forces have the box. And by the end, they have to save the world with the box.
And we find out that box had a blue laser in the sky.
As boxes are wont to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a mystery why that happens with that box. A real mystery box. Anyway, I have a headcanon thing that makes this movie work a lot better for me, and it's not a pitch, but I just want to say it out loud, which is that, for me, this movie would work a lot better if it was shaved down a lot, and then just, like, was just one of the chapters in Cloud Atlas. Because I think it has a lot of the same themes, like the chattel slavery is a huge part of all of that. I think it's got plenty of elements that kind of work, and I think it actually, like, kind of works with the future stuff that we see in that series. I think this has the same level of depth of storytelling of any of the chapters in Cloud Atlas, which is kind of the problem of Cloud Atlas. Like all of the stories in that are like surface level, and this is kind of in the same.
Yeah. I haven't seen Cloud Atlas, so I can't speak to that.
I am a much bigger fan of Cloud Atlas than I am of this. I will say that.
Yeah. I see tons of movies, and so many of them would work better as like 45-minute to hour-long shorts. But I think the runtime is so bloated because they had all of these ideas, and I just wish that some of that energy was put towards interweaving those ideas in this overarching plot with motivations and reasons for being for the people that we have to spend most of the time with. And I just wish that I just wish that there was I also wish special effects wise that the movie would have come out like 10 years before it did.
Go on, because I actually really like.
Is it because you're hoping that it wouldn't rely so much on the special effects? Is that why?
Part of it, or at least some of them would be a little bit more practical. Like, because like I said before, the movie's weird, but I don't know if it's necessarily weird enough. In the same way you're talking about them sort of like going a little bit harder with the Oedipal stuff, if the movie had decided to be a bit sexier. You know? It's just like it feels like as weird as it feels like something that is weird, but only as weird as it could be to still try and be commercial, which at the end of the day, it was still too weird to be commercial. But but yeah, I just wish that, you know, like the dragon creatures that Eddie Redmayne, is whispering at the entire movie. They look kind of like the puppets from the Dark Crystal. And what would the movie look like if some more stuff like puppetry and things and stuff like that were used? And they didn't have the special effects to rely on, and they had to cut corners in some way, and they had to build things from scratch. what would some of that stuff look like?
Yeah, I could see that. Definitely puppet up some of these aliens.
And this isn't to say that the special effects themselves are bad. It's that I tend to respond more to practical effects, and the movie is inspired by so many movies that came before it, that because of the time and the technology that was available, had to use puppetry, had to use miniatures, had to be a lot more tactile in creating these worlds. Part of me was missing that in this.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's interesting to think because, like, it's a Wachowski movie, and, like, this is 16 years after the first Matrix movie. And, like, I feel that their style is such fascination with pushing the envelope of special effects and trying new things with it, that I just don't think that that's a movie that they would have made.
And I completely buy that. I completely buy that. That makes total sense to me. It's just that their chosen genre, which is space opera, has this long, storied history of very practical, very tactile, tangible, you can touch most of the things on screen, kind of effects. And I felt like because of the genre that they're playing in, that stuff missing sort of took away from it a little bit, if that makes sense.
Oh, it totally does. Like, I have a note that this feels like a Star Wars prequel, and I think that's the same type of problem. The story's kind of bloated, and nothing feels very real, but there's a lot of, like, good ideas in play. And as a result, I like it a lot, but I also can't say that it's a good movie.
It's like, what if Cinderella was Romeo and Juliet was the Phantom Menace? That's this movie.
Yeah. Sam, you got anything on that? Or
No, I was nodding, and I realized that you can't see that because I don't have my camera on. So I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, it just, like, hit me. And I was like, I feel like there's, like, one other thing, but I couldn't think of another. I was like, it's got to be, like, commentary on capitalism. But, yeah, there's a strong political stance in this, too. Yeah, no, I actually love the idea of practical effects. I mean, like, one of my favorite shows was Farscape, and I think one of the things that made that work so well is all the puppets in it. Like, the aliens felt so real because they were practical effects. Like, Rigel was there. Pilot was there for the actors to touch and to feel. So I do it, but I understand what you're saying, Case, about just, like, the style that the Wachowskis have in terms of just loving. They love their special effects. And they do it well. And so I didn't have a problem with any of the special effects in this film. I thought that overall it's a beautiful film. Like, this film is actually really beautiful. Like, the design, the way that the world fits together, like, everything really fits really well together. Like, I remember there were, like, all sorts of articles and everything about the wedding dress that Mila Kunis wore in that scene, especially because the headpiece was so elaborate for them to make. Like, they spent a lot of time really thinking about what this world would look like and feel like in their design choices. So I think overall, like, that's good. I feel like we're getting close to pitches, but, like, before we pitch, maybe, Case, we should...
Yeah, we should probably pause for a second and give a shout out to one of the mini shows that we have on our network, which are all great, and we should do that. So
yeah, let's do it.
Let's break to that, and when we come back, we will have pitches.
Hey there, Screen Beans. Have you heard about Screen Snark?
Rachel, this is an ad break. They aren't screen beans until they listen to the show.
Fine. Potential Screen Beans. You like movies and TV shows, right?
I mean, who doesn't? Screen Snark is a casual conversation about the movies and television shows that are shaping us as we live our everyday lives.
That's right, Matt. We have a chat with at least one incredible guest every episode, hailing from all walks. We've interviewed chefs,
Writers, costumers, musicians,
yoga teachers, comedians, burlesque dancers,
folks in the film and TV industry,
and more.
We'd be delighted for you to join us every other Monday on the Certain POV Podcast Network.
Or wherever you get your podcasts, fresh and tasty off the presses.
What? That's not...
Can I call them Screen Beans now?
Fine.
Screen Beans!
So tune in and we'll see you at the movies or on a couch somewhere.
'Cause you're all screen beans now.
She will be mine. Aurora.
All right, and we're back. So I had a couple other notes, but I feel like they're kind of just like parts of my pitches, like things I wish that had been improved in this. But CeeJay, as our guest, would you like to take the first crack at it?
Yeah. So, we've talked about it. My number one thing, make it hornier. Most things need to be hornier. This movie in particular needed to be a lot more horny than it actually was. My second pitch is one of the siblings has to go. Not Eddie Redmayne, but Douglas Booth or the sister. One of them has to go. There's one too many of them, which that entire stop is space that could be used to create more tension and development between Kane and Jupiter. I think that characterization wise, the sister and the younger brother are hewed entirely too close together to work effectively as two different characters.
Well, especially because we don't get more with Khalik.
Yeah.
Like, she would be the easiest to at least like cut out her section or have like her section be like kind of fused with like the bureaucracy part, because she's doesn't play a part later on.
Yeah, I didn't remember her name. I had to ask you for it.
Yeah.
I think that the reincarnation stuff is not too heady, but a little too complicated for what they want to do. I would have rather Jupiter just been left on Earth by their mom before she died, and her be the long lost sister, rather than their sister mom wife. That's another thing. I think there's a little bit too much exposition that's spread throughout the movie, because it's just happening and none of it turns out to be really like, none of it except for the stem cell blocks turn out to be an actual reveal. And even then, there's a lot of like very obvious visual stuff that's sort of leading you to that conclusion. I would have rather the large story points or narrative points of the world that is being built here be explained in a prologue. And then all the other stuff is just character stuff. I think that Jupiter and Kane spend too much time together for them not really to know much about each other. I would also jettison the family, or most of the family. Maybe just keep the mom. But other than, and I like the idea of her like being sort of born without a country, but they don't really do anything with it. Yeah, a big prologue at the beginning would have been very, very good to explain the world and to see the mom trying to escape with Jupiter and then going to Earth. And even if the mom has to die, I don't know why the mom always has to die, but even if the mom has to die, then that would be, in my opinion, a cleaner way for things to just work, rather than the I'm going to marry my mom's reincarnated self and stuff like that. That those were a lot of concepts that I don't think paid off very well. I also, like I said, would make the effects a little bit more practical. And if we're dealing with this race that is humans that are just populating different worlds with more humans, all of the aliens feel like they would need to be more humanoid than they appeared, in my opinion. They kind of had the big lizard people. I would want them to be more like human lizard people, and I would also like the what was the last name of the kingdom?
Abraxas.
I would like them to look a bit weirder. I would like them to have sort of a design for what humans on the planet that humans actually come from look like and why it's different from human beings that are on Earth.
Yeah. Yeah, like this isn't a thing that I felt like needed to really be nitpicked, because it's the kind of pedantry that I go for but no one else does, which is that the whole like, well, why did they even splice humanity into the species that was living on Earth? Like, why did they do anything like that? Like the timetables don't match up with like real science. Like they killed the dinosaurs 65 million years ago and then waited then another 64 to do anything with the species living on the planet. Like a lot of those are like, oh, well, like it just seemed like weird stuff that they're just using shorthand.
I'm sorry, Case, have you ever destroyed an entire planet of beings? You have to give it some time to sit so the soil gets turned over. I'm
yeah,
joking,
you have to
sorry.
rotate crops. Which, that would have been more interesting also, by the way. Like, if it was like, it wasn't an alien race they wiped out, they harvested the dinosaurs and then, like, they let a new race go. But if they're humans, then, like, it's all just, like, weird details there. And, like, the timelines for things are all, like, man, none of these, like, really properly work as far as science goes. And it would have been nice to, like, I don't know, make it matter more. Like,
and also with the idea with the splices, I think it makes for some interesting gags. I'm a big fan of gags. I'm a gag guy. Take for example, Kane. What if another? And this also fits in with the sort of bureaucracy aspect of it. I didn't really like the aliens that looked a little bit more like Roswell aliens, fixing everything up, because I would like there to be a galaxy-wide sort of bureaucracy and construction setup where there is different aliens that are spliced with different animals, which explain, and they said that like nobody ever believes that we erase enough minds to where if we miss somebody, nobody ever believes them. But that would be why nobody ever believed anybody about Bigfoot or a Wolfman or, whatever, a mermaid, because that was an alien who was here to tax somebody because they were spliced with an alien from a fish planet or something like that. Stuff like that. I think that there is a lot of minutia towards the space stuff that I think could be boiled down to more recognizable symbols and still make sense and still feel weird and get the point across as well. And then I think lastly, I would recast Jupiter, even though I appreciate Mila Kunis and her work.
I can see that. One thing when we were watching it, we kept saying is that she does not have period face. And with this like fantasy kind of element, like she just seems out of place a lot.
Which I think you get somebody else who doesn't have period face, and that's an odd term.
Yeah.
But who doesn't have like a face that works for like drama set in medieval times or something like that, but can embody a sort of plucked off the street in Chicago person and still be weirded out by all this stuff. If this movie was being made right now, I would or even in the same time, I would choose Allison Brie. And I would also just flesh out Jupiter's characterization a little bit more, make her a serial underachiever, make her maybe a stoner. I think if she's a stoner, it would explain a lot of why she kind of just goes along with all of the space stuff to get along. And
Okay, now you're adding Dude, Where's My Car?
what's going Oh, well,
I was thinking, now this is Dude, Where's My Car? And it's hilarious. I kind of want this version. Go on.
yes, and I want the conflict not to be that she can't trust anybody, but to be that like she doesn't care. Like I want her sort of demeanor to be like, what's the point? And if there's no larger point to sort of her life that's going on Earth, she figures out that there's this vastness of space which features this kingdom that controls everything and stuff like that, which confirms those suspicions. So why would her demeanor change when she gets to space? And it, like, just because I like a lot of stuff that Mila Kunis is doing incidentally, because Mila Kunis is not a terribly dynamic performer, but and I want to take that and I want to graft that onto the character as characterization and getting a better actress. Those are all my things.
That was just your long wish list?
Yep. That's all I got. Everything about Channing Tatum, keep him the same. Keep the awful blonde hair. Keep him spending a smooth third of the movie with his shirt off. Keep him not having...
Flying into space
with his shirt off. Keep him looking obviously fit as Channing Tatum's are wont to do, but like not so much that it makes me feel bad. I can tell that he had like a burrito before they started filming, and I appreciate him for it. I just like because I'm tired of seeing guys who are like 3 months into a studio financed exercise plan, dehydrated for a week and on HGH, and them telling me that's what people look like. It's not what people look like. But yeah, keep everything. Those are my changes and my suggestions and my pitches.
All right. Yeah, I think I think a lot of that is stuff that we can work with. Sam, how about you?
Okay, so I kind of kept a lot. So our pitches are a little bit similar. They did get different in a little way. So I also thought maybe dropping the elder sister, but still keeping 3 siblings, and having the third sibling actually be Jupiter's father. So instead of there's this whole romantic scene where her mother finds this man just staring up at the sky and that kind of thing, and he's always, in places that she didn't expect him to be. So my thing is that he is the elder brother. He is the king, and everyone else are like, his brothers are the princes underneath him. And he owns Earth, but it's very far out into the galaxy. It's like a podunk, kind of place, but he loves it. He thinks it's very quaint. He doesn't call it because he likes this space, and he falls in love with this human woman. And before he knows that she is pregnant, his brother, Eddie Redmayne, puts a hit on him and gets rid of him. And there is a war in space over who has actual dominion over this kingdom for this family, because as far as everyone knows, he doesn't have an heir. So this war has been going on forever. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Jupiter is living on Earth, cleaning toilets with her mom, who, for all intensive purposes, one day she had the love of her life and she was pregnant, and he had told her that he was going to marry her, and then he disappeared. So she doesn't trust men. She's passed that down to her daughter. Her uncle still treats her like crap because she is a child out of wedlock, and traditionally that's not okay. So she's got a lot of issues. She's got a lot of issues, and she just really doesn't give a flying rat's ass about anything or anyone, because that's what's expected of her. Mm-hmm. There's nothing more expected of her. She doesn't care. What the fuck? And I say that she does go in for a medical procedure, but maybe not harvesting her eggs, because that's a little too on the nose for me. Harvest. It doesn't sit right with Jupiter. I'm sorry, guys. I'm still making fun of that line. So she goes in for a medical procedure. It is figured out by these spies because there is a rumor that he did indeed, because of the diary that's found or something. I don't know. We'll work it out in the rewrite. That he did love this woman, and that she was with his child, and he was very happy. And so there's this whole thing, they need to find her, because technically she's the rightful heir. And why this pisses off Eddie Redmayne so much is because Earth has been so untouched that there are so many people that he could make so much money from basically taking the whole planet and calling it and, you know, taking all these people. He could make a fortune. And, like, technically he owns it, but he doesn't own it because there's this question, you know? And you can pull in the bureaucracy there, too, like, which would be kind of fun, you know? So this is the competition between the two brothers, right? Because you want to get this young lady into space, and the brother that's not Eddie Redmayne, whose name I keep forgetting, and I know it starts with a T
Titus.
in the movie, but
Titus.
I can't. Titus. I keep wanting to call him Tristan, and so I stop myself because I know Tristan's wrong. So Titus, of course, I'm like, no, I don't know what's wrong. So Titus, of course, is in this mad dash to find her, partially because politically, if he can get her on the side, or even marry her because royalty doesn't give a shit about that, he can basically have ownership of this and stop Eddie Redmayne from having, you know, any of the monies. He can have all of the galactic monies. I don't know what they actually called it, or if they just trade in the spice. I don't know. So of course, you know, so he's looking, and that's why he hires Kane to go and find her, and to, like, it's been confirmed that she's definitely down there. And she is very close to her mom, even though she doesn't give a crap about the rest of her family. She loves her mom. She sees that her mom has been, like, not treated well by her brothers. She's very attached to her. And so when everything goes down and she gets kidnapped, she is most worried about her mom and trying to get in touch with her mom. And of course she can't. And you can have, like, a couple of things of her mom being very worried about where she went and her uncle being like, whatever. So in any case, I would leave everything about Kane the same. I have no problem with his splicing. Maybe I would add the bluish tint to his skin. I don't know. Ever since Case mentioned that, I was like, no, I'm actually digging that. Just kind of make him, like, a little bit different and mysterious. But I want to see more in the characterization. I would like to see a little more pushback between the two of them, where he's got to remind her that he has saved her life. And she's like, yeah, thanks so much. Still going home. And he's like, I don't think you understand. Like, these people are going to get you, and you're going to have to come, or your family's going to be in trouble. Keep Sean Bean in it, because I love him, and why not? And he can help get them up there. And then when they get on the barge with her uncle, not Tristan, That's what I'm gonna call him. I'm gonna call him not Tristan because Titus. I found it, guys. Titus. There is, you know, he does the summary of the world, kind of showing her what it was, telling her about her father, but he does it in a way that it's a very slow reveal of how, like, actually terrible things are, right? So all of a sudden this whole world opens up to her that she never thought was a possibility. And here she's someone important. Whereas, like, back on Earth, she's a girl who cleans toilets, whose uncle is a raging asshole that she lives with because her dad disappeared. But it turned out her dad is the king of the universe. And that's fucking awesome. And also, oh shit, I'm fucking royalty. What the fuck? And so there's going to be, like, a nice, like, oh God. And Kane's going to ultimately be disappointed because he doesn't really like royalty, because splicing is something that they do to make other humans more, you know, and other races fit their needs more, to subjugate them more. And so, like, for him, like, she's part of the group that basically, like, made him what he was, which is just a hybrid of a lot of different things to serve their purposes, to basically serve them. And so that'll bring tension into their life, which will confuse her because she doesn't understand the politics of what is, and she doesn't even understand why her uncle would be a bad person, till her uncle tries to get sexy and tries to marry her. And she's like, whoa, wait, hold on. No, I don't want to be sexy with you. Like, I don't want to marry you. And of course he's gotten rid of Kane, and Kane realizes that, like, you know what? She's from another planet. She just doesn't even know what she's gotten herself into, and also knows that she's going to die. That I would keep. So, like, the uncle's going to kill her, like, afterwards. Because he doesn't care about her. Why should he care? So Kane will save her, and in saving her, somehow the two of them will fall into another trap, and then will just fall to the more evil brother, Eddie Redmayne, who can continue to do his choice of whisper. It's fine, I guess. Except for the yelling. I was like, I kind of wanted him to have like a twitch when he yelled, more so, because I wanted it to be like, this is something he tried to do to be dignified. And then when he yelled and lost his mind, it was because he's actually crazy, and I just wanted to see more of a twitch. But and then he's kidnapped the one person that he knows that is, you know, the most important, which is his mom, or her mom rather, and it'll probably proceed the way that it did, except that at the end, she really won't just own Earth. She will actually be in charge of the universe, and that's hard because I don't know what that leads to. There's like too many questions, but the movie doesn't answer that either, because it's like, she owns Earth, so what else? But yeah, definitely keep the scene with the wings. That was awesome. Make Channing blue, and that's my pitch.
Can I add one more? Can I add one more element?
Yeah.
Babu Frick, or a Babu Frick type character.
Yes, I'm in. You. I don't even know if you need to finish this for the people at home, but I am on the same wavelength.
No. That's literally it. Babu Frick or a Babu Frick type character, and
1,000 times
possibly
yes. You need that comedy,
and possibly a DJ Khaled song over the credits that features Babu Frick and Pitbull.
Again, so in, completely committed, ready to sign that contract. Yes. The other thing that they really could do, and this is just like me saying it, if they wanted to keep the world exactly as it is, they could do that as long as they did it in a 16-episode arc.
Yeah, that is the other way to take it.
So that they could, like, actually, like, go through all of these very complicated ideas that they're trying to set forth, you know? Case?
So I like all of these notes so far. I feel like the bulk structure of it, because it's so simple, doesn't really need to be changed that much to make this work a lot better as a movie. I think this movie is really close to being actually good, and it's just like all this like weird spots where it gets like kind of lost in itself, or it didn't realize it needed some thought at some areas that would really make it work a lot better. I agree that it's really awkward, and it feels like a serial. It feels like a Flash Gordon thing. The way the siblings play out, 1, 2, 3, is it's the exact same beats, and it's really annoying that they don't matter in any way. And it's particularly annoying because Khalik happens so early, and we never actually really find out what her deal is. She pivots when Kane shows up to being like, perfect, we'll take you to the authorities. That's great. And then she doesn't really come back again. So if nothing else, she needs to be involved in the third act, because she's not, and that sucks. I also think that we need to actually understand a little bit more about the world, because they explain a lot, but one area that they don't actually explain is this concept of like whatever sort of central authority exists at all. We know that the Aegis is out there, and it's kind of like a knightly order of that like sort of writes things, but we don't see a lot of it. And we know that they have this like extremely complicated legal system out there, and not that I want to spend that much more time in any of that, because we don't need everyone voting on no confidence in the Imperial Senate. Like we don't need that in this movie. Like, but I would like a little bit more, because I think that one of the big problems is that Jupiter's ascension doesn't actually happen in this movie. I think that we don't get her coming into her own as a powerful political figure that she ultimately needs to be. And I think that is a big arc that we're missing. And then CeeJay used the exact terms that I had, which is enemies to lovers, needs to be better played out, because they are kind of like a little, we dig each other, but I don't know each other's deal. And then lovers pretty fast. Like there's no, there's this assumption that they shouldn't like each other, or at least Cain doesn't like Jupiter, but then that goes away real fast.
Yeah.
And we need to make that not be the way. So for me, I think I would open the movie on the dead world. I think that was a really evocative thing, and I think that the Wachowskis are dealing with the fact that it is impossible not to talk about the Matrix. I think that there are so many story beats that are similar that they're going to try to like reposition them so that it isn't just a one-to-one, because it's really effective to have your fish out of water story start with the fish in the water and like start to notice that there might be things outside of the water, and then accidentally end up outside of water and then have to figure out how to survive. Like, that was the Matrix with Neo. Like, Neo sees the world. We get like little hints, but they're not very overt. They, they set up that things are weird, but we don't know what the twist is going to be. This movie, like they set up very early on that the twist is like, yeah, there's space. Like there's humans in space. We're fine with that. So I think we should start off with like the culling. And then it's interesting that we've got James Darcy in this movie, who is not Brian Darcy James, Micah. And we don't really do much with him. I like the idea of him being a more important part. So I actually really like the idea of him being being all of their father, and sort of setting up that like Earth was bequeathed to her or something to that effect, and like maybe the will is inscribed on the tattoo that she's always had her whole life, rather than one she gets like later on, and she never understood how it happened. It was when she was a baby,
Who tattoos a baby?
So sort of set.
That I'm just saying. No, I'm saying that's like a good. That's a good line or something. That's a good like for her to be like, yeah, I've always had it. Who tattoos a baby?
Yeah, it's like not quite a birthmark.
Yeah, and then we don't need to have the flashback to the dad be at the beginning. It can actually happen a little bit later in, because we're kind of opening at the point now, like in the present, with like they just cull the world. There's like conversations about this all, and I actually really dig this idea of it being Jupiter as their sibling rather than like this reincarnation of the mother, because I think that's a thing that's too close to the Matrix, and they need to move away from that one, because it's just the one was reborn, all over again.
Yeah, I mean,
so I think
if they wanted to go reincarnation, I think that they should have gone like full, like honestly full ascension, and then had her have the mother's, like do a ceremony where she actually has the mother's memories. Like, I think that would have been kind of cool. Like, if
that would be a really interesting thing.
If that's the way you're going to go. Because she, like, doesn't ever get any of the memories. She doesn't ever really fully become the reincarnation. She doesn't really connect with it. You know how much I love Avatar. And so, if somehow she could, like, connect with the queen or get the queen's memories and, like, become kind of a player in this world, that would have also been interesting. Like, I don't know how that plays out with the time, and that changes the movie drastically, but that would have been a little more interesting than what happened. And if you're going to make a
actually, yeah, I mean, that's also kind of a perfect thing to like push things forward, which is that like if she had the mother's memories implanted in her when she's at the Citadel, like if that was waiting for her as part of this will, and you could do the resurrection story arc, where then she's trying to interpret this like, memory file that's been loaded into her brain. Sure, that's very Matrix-esque, but I think that actually is kind of different here, because it's all the memories, not just all the powers, and like it allows for reveals of things to occur at an appropriate spot for it.
Also, it becomes a mystery because then you can have her solve who murdered the mother.
Yeah, because like maybe the memories don't go up to the point of her death. Like maybe they just have on file the last time she saved, but she has like way more information now, and it means that she can't be manipulated the same way. Like maybe, like I think that keeping 3 is fine. Like there's no need to remove a sibling because narratively we kind of like that typically. Things coming in sequences of 3. I think Khalik, I would actually have her be a powerful political figure, potentially, like maybe at the Citadel, like or whatever they're calling it, like wherever this like center point of bureaucracy is. Like she greets her, like either her reincarnated mother or her long lost sister, and is happy to see her, and she has this like wonderful estate. And it's like, oh, unfortunately, you have to go down to the lower levels to go get the paperwork filled out, and then we go into that. Like, this is my android assistant. He can show you the way. and then have her be part of this, because what I really want is I really want Jupiter to rise in political power. Like she has that moment with Titus where she like rattles off some code of or law that like here's all the tax code stuff that I can fine you for the way you've behaved. And I like that moment, but that should be the first step in her coming into her own, and she never gets there.
Yeah.
And that I think is really annoying because she never actually ascends. She has like a like fuck yeah moment where she kills Eddie Redmayne or survives Eddie Redmayne, but it's not her actually doing the thing that she needs to be good at. Like she's never going to be as good as Kane at that. Like
All she says is, "I'm not your mother," and then he falls.
Yeah, that's what happens after you say I'm not your mother.
He Hans Grubers.
yeah, it's not really satisfying. You know, like what I would really like is for her at the end, for her to be able to reveal that either she'd been recording or transmitting or something, or she's just called in reinforcements because she's figured out how to use her wealth and, you know, inheritance and political power to bring in reinforcements. And that should be like Khalik leading, like Khalik's like flagship, and then like the whole forces of the Aegis, not just that one ship that was in orbit. Like the cavalry should show up, and that should be when Eddie Redmayne like flips out, like, and like things start to go bad, and that's the very end of the third act. But we should have like Jupiter actually like get the drop on him, and she needs to be more capable and more aware by the end than she was earlier on. And so I like the idea of her getting the memories. I also like the idea of her being the sister and figuring things out, but like being a quick study. And maybe the deal is that she's so smart that being just like, I don't like getting into like, well, if you were smart, you wouldn't be doing like a blue collar job, but like maybe that is kind of the thing, that she's doing a job that she's actually really good at. She like, it shows that she's better than anyone at, but she's lazy because she's so innately good at it. Like she has a great eye for detail. Maybe she spots all the things that people were missing. And maybe she was like, maybe like we get scenes of her early on, like reading a book instead of cleaning a room because it's like, it'll only take her a minute. And we find out that she's actually like great at all this stuff. Like she's able to like spot all the things. She's able to remember all these like particular details. And that should be then a thing that pays off later. Because as it is, we don't get any sort of like setup and payoff for her arc. Like she doesn't really have an arc. She just comes into money and then says that she's not going to let it change her. And we don't even see any truth to that. Like we don't know how much further it goes. So I'd like that. And then like CeeJay, like you were saying with Enemies to Friends, I think that as soon as it's revealed that she is an entitled, we should get more hostility from him. And then I think we should spend more time in the bureaucratic world, even if not more of the actual like that one scene was perfectly fine, that like Brazil-esque, like we're going to run around and go check out, you know, like go to all the different stations, but spend more time like absorbing the quote unquote society, not just the individual like castles of each of these people, but like actually absorb like what human society looks like. And this is why I think Khalik kind of works well here, because she's not overtly hostile. So this is a good time for it to be like, oh no, they're like, we can get like a little bit of introduction to it all. We can sort of spend some time here, but we can also set up why the entitled are bad.
Yeah.
Like, and they are bad. Like they should be abusive to their servants. They should throw these these soldiers into their deaths. Like, I don't think they even like fully explain like why Kane tore someone's throat out. I think they just said he did it. And I would like to know. I would like to have more of a feeling for it. Like I would like to feel like he was doing something right for his friends. Like that he was standing up against the oppression of society, and then found out that like he's just a cog in this machine, and that machine is just going to keep on like chugging along. And that's why he's depressed and hates them, and kind of hates her as an extension of that. And so that her ascension here and becoming better at it shows that there is a way for positive change in society that he finds endearing. Because there should be a point where before she gets her full inheritance, and maybe this is the point where if she's getting the memories, like up until that point where she has to lay low, like Titus is after her or something like that, or Balaam, Redmayne, Eddie Redmayne's character. There should be a spot where later on in the movie, not like when they go to Stinger's place, where like Kane is protecting her and keeping her secreted away from some sort of threat, where they hook up. Like that should be like, and then there should be weird friction, and then they should part, and that's when she gets captured, and then like that's when Kane shows up and she thought that Kane had abandoned her or something to that effect. And Kane showing up, it's like, oh, you really do love me kind of thing. Because we also don't really get that. Like Kane just was like, nope, you're going to go where you need to go. Okay, I'll stay with you. Okay. Oh, sorry, they closed the door. I can't. Now I had to break the door to get to you. Like, there's never like a spot where he like really made a choice that was different than just what he was going to do anyway. Like,
Yeah.
like there's no conflict there, and like there should be some conflict where he's like, maybe he's disgusted by her accepting her inheritance. Like, maybe that's the thing that like sort of breaks them at the 60% mark, where she does accept like the memories of her past self or her past genetic duplicate, or she does take on the mantle of whatever House of Braxis, whatever, and like roll with that so that there is continual conflict, and then he decides that no, he really does love her, and he fights his way through hell to get to her, as opposed to he's just always going to stay by her, and the fact that she got separated from him, he's mad and he's going to go catch up to her, because those sequences are so good. Like we haven't really talked that much about just how fucking dope all the action sequences
they're really
are.
great.
Like the Wachowskis do an amazing job. That fight in Chicago, which is just this like when it's done, you're like, holy fuck. Like, all of those I want way more of. But man, they wrote this script and then they started shooting this script, and like we just needed like some tightening at multiple spots, because I love the world that they've got going. I love all the elements that they've got going. I just want to feel like these two are like they had that friction, and now they're just fucking inseparable, because now they're just gonna bone like at the end of it all, because like he's her knight in shining armor and she's the princess in the castle. But like I don't want her to be a weak princess. I want her to Queen Amidala this shit. Like, she should feel like she's like on the foundation of a rebellion or whatever of the society, or some sort of change, like doing something with it. And sure, she wants to learn how to sky skate. Awesome. I want to see more of that at the end too. But like, I feel like she needs to actually be doing something with her power, because just sitting back and letting humanity sort of be its own thing is also like she'll eventually die and they'll just take the planet. Like, that's just what they're going to do. Like, she hasn't fixed society. So I need to feel like that's somewhere on her. It doesn't need to be on her to-do list for tomorrow, but it needs to be like on the road. Right. She's going to figure out what she's going to do. In the meantime, she's like sort of learning her deal.
Yeah, because all she does is, like, she inherits Earth, and then she's, like, hanging out there. And I'm like, yeah, but, like, bro, what about the other planets? Like, what about the other places they're killing? Like, so you just don't want it to happen to your planet? Okay. It's kind of selfish in an altruistic way.
Also, I don't like Kane getting his wings back at the end.
Me neither.
Like, I get it from a story standpoint, but I don't think he should have ever had wings, because we never... Like, we don't get any scene where it's a big change for him, and we spent so much time establishing how fucking cool these like sky skates are. And at one point, like when he gets captured at one spot, he uses them to break out, and I'm like, why did they leave his sky skates on him when they put him in jail? That seems such a, like an obvious oversight, especially since he just used it to break out. Are they just so common? Are they like wheelie skate like shoes?
Also, why didn't he do that inside the cell?
I think it's just like more just not being quite clear what they wanted to do with
Yeah,
some of the scenes.
yeah,
like,
that's fair. It's
Yeah.
I agree with everything you said.
But the sky skating is so cool, and he's so good at it. And I wish they leaned more into like the skating metaphor. Like, if we got some more like skater moves kind of stuff. Like I don't know what all the good words are, but you know, like when you like put your hand down on the half pipe and you're like you kick up and stuff like that. Like some like real
like an ollie kind of thing.
Yeah, like some real like Tony Hawk kind of shots.
I also do not know. I've just heard the word ollie used around skaters. I don't know anything.
And like vert.
Please don't add us into
Also, on the wings, they never really properly explained the significance of them, or what kind of rank they denote, or why they're so important. It's just that I guess Legionnaire folks have wings, and they lost them because they were kicked out of the Legion. But yeah, that it doesn't getting them back doesn't really do anything, especially when there's a very visual freedom and coolness that's already established with the skates, with the moon boots.
Yeah.
I mean, they just make him an angel, though. So,
Right.
I mean, there's just that.
Yeah, I mean, he becomes a Hound Archon, and that's cool. Like that, like, but you know what? Like, if all the other people on the ship had their wings, and like everyone we saw in the society, if all the other humans had their wings, like if that was just like a part of it, if it was like if it was like Hawkworld, which this actually is like not that far from, like the 80s revamp of Hawkman, where all the aristocracy
Thanagar and all
wear
that,
wings. Yeah, on Thanagar. Like, that actually is, like, kind of in the same vein. And, like, maybe they could work with that. But also, the wings don't dramatically change the abilities that Kane has. Because he is able to go up. It's hard, but he can. Like, down is easier, he says. But he effectively can move around freely in three-dimensional space because of the shoes he's wearing. That the wings don't change dramatically what his power of action is, so it wasn't like he was being dramatically inhibited. They were just they effectively were like keeping him away from the elevator, and he had to use the stairs. And it would have been like it would have just be. It should be something different. Like he was being really restricted from a thing, and so the fact that he is already able to freely move around, it doesn't. It's cool. But like I would rather him teach her how to sky skate while both of them are wearing sky skates. Like how, like this should be like the ending of Disney's Tarzan, where they're both swinging on the goddamn vine, and there's a moment where it's just like, oh, he taught her how to be him in this environment, and like that.
Honestly, in your rewrite, in your pass, there you do have her like hiding on the planet. While like trying not to be hunted down, and that actually could be like a really cute scene.
Yeah,
him trying to teach her how to like sky skate, like that's like that's just such a classic rom-com, like, and like the stakes are higher, right, because you're in the air. And she could be like, so she could be like, she'll be like, I'm not doing that. That's way too high. And he'll be like, okay, all right. And then like you see them like, they're seemingly in the air, and he's like, okay, now come to me. She's like, no. He's like, no, just come on, just slide forward. And she goes and she kind of tips, and she's like, oh my God. And he's like, you're literally like 2 feet from the ground. And like you show it, and like so you have like this funny moment of her just being like freaking out over something that's like not, and it can just be very cute, and like them getting higher, and then her kind of falling and him catching her, which can totally be super sweet and romantic, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, building a new rom-com.
Well, and that's the thing this movie is missing. Like they just like each other too much without really any sort of back and forth on it. And not that every movie needs to have a love interest story, but this one has one, so it should be a good one. It just doesn't
work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, that's my biggest thing. Like, honestly, if their love story just felt better, I think this whole movie would work better for everyone. And, like, everything else is icing on the cake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
that's true.
But because, like, it's so interesting on a surface level, and it doesn't, like, all click together, and, like, that's the bummer about this movie. Because I watched it, and I was like, yeah, I'm really happy I spent the time to rewatch this movie.
Same. Especially during the first half.
Yeah, the first half is still really good, and I will say, like, despite me not like being thrilled with her family, because they're not great, I was like, oh, I really misjudged this film. Like I don't remember why I didn't like it. Like, this film's awesome. Like, this is really good. And then I hit the middle of the film, and I was like, oh, right, it kind of falls apart. And it falls apart because, poor Jupiter and Kane, they just really are not compelling. They're not compelling together, and she doesn't have a real, as you said, she never ascends.
Yeah.
It's so sad.
It's funny. This is just more proof that it's very hard to make a Dune movie.
Agreed.
And
yeah.
I hope that ends up being
Did you hear? I actually called the elixir spice before, and then I was like, and I just kind of kept talking because I was like, did anyone notice that I called it spice?
I think it didn't faze me so much that I just was just like, yep, that's the term for it, right? Okay, moving on.
You're like, yeah, this is basically Dune.
Yeah. And that's fine. Like, I don't need everything to be completely unique. Like, there are all these, like, sci-fi references that I enjoy. I'm really happy with all that. Like, I don't roll my eyes when we get to the point where he's fighting a literal dragon. I'm here for all of those things. Like, I am here to be like, oh, the Wachowskis, you two really like the same shit I do? Awesome. I'm so happy for it.
Yeah. Space dragons are awesome. I think there should be more space dragons. I think there should be movies with more space dragons. I've said it. I don't even think it's a controversial take. I think there would be a lot of people that'd be like, yeah, Sam's right. There should be space dragons.
Oh, totally last thing, which is like the one thing they are missing at the end is that Eddie Redmayne should be a wizard. Like, not like actual magic, but like he should have like some tech shit in his chambers that allow him to do some crazy shit. Like he should be able to like make hand gestures or say command words to Alexa that just like all of a sudden like Alexa shoot lightning bolts.
Alexa, kill the reincarnation of my mother.
But he should have some shit like that, or like some gray goo stuff, or, you know, something that's like future technology that is indistinguishable from magic for the purposes of the scene confronting him. Like, she one-ups him with her like political machinations. Like all of a sudden, like there's a fleet right outside of Jupiter. Like, oh shit, he's going to lose ultimately. He's like, well, sure, but there he won't find your body. And then he just starts making commands, and she, you know, we get some scenes with that, and it's not just him trying to beat her to death. Like, have him do some like cool shit that's like space technology, but again, like looks basically magic.
Yeah. I just realized, I just want to say, I'm sorry if anyone's listening with an Alexa in the room, and the Alexa's very confused right now. Because every time you say an Alexa's name, it voice activates, and I've had, well, my cousin, every time he listens to a podcast and someone mentions her, weird shit comes up on his Alexa.
You mean when someone mentions Alexa?
Yeah, because if you're like, Alexa, and then you say something, like, whatever you command it with, and so like a lot of times, you know, podcasts, human voices, yeah, he actually had a DVD ordered.
Well,
at one point from his Amazon account.
We have been merciful up until this point because there is a character in this movie named Alexa, and we have only referred to her as Jupiter's mom.
Also, I don't think Alexa can kill the reincarnation of your mom, so I think you should be okay, listeners.
Right, but Alexa can play Chumbawamba. And so that should happen right now.
How dare you?
Alexa, I'm sorry.
You are cruel. You are cruel.
Yeah, and for all you other ones out there, hey Siri, play Chumbawamba. Okay, Google, play Chumbawamba.
You know, just equal opportunity being an ass.
Yeah. I didn't mind. It actually triggered my own phone. Fuck. Okay.
That's funny.
I trolled myself.
You trolled yourself.
Hey, you know, the best part is that's the first time that has actually worked on my phone. Like, it just does not hear me when I try to use the voice commands. So anyway, so now that we are done trolling our audience, I feel like we all kind of just, like, generally liked it. And there's, like, yeah, it's all these, like, spots to tighten. And, like, you know, clearly this just didn't get the second draft. It's very much like the Phantom Menace, where they had plenty of freedom, maybe not complete freedom like the way George Lucas did, but they had plenty of freedom to make some cool shit, and they made some cool shit, but they didn't have like someone like really go through and be like, but why is this scene here? Not why does this scene happen, but why is this scene here? And that's like the big issue with this whole script.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So, CeeJay, would you consider this freezer burned?
No, I think this is still fresh. I think there's a lot of stuff here that makes the movie worth watching. So I would give it a still fresh, which is spoilers because we'll be doing this movie on the show later. But yeah.
All right. Well, if people want to have your thoughts about if a movie is fresh or freezer burned, where can they find those thoughts?
I have a podcast called Below Freezing with CeeJay and Micah. I'm CeeJay and my buddy Micah. We have a podcast in which we unthaw different movies that come in at or below 32% on Rotten Tomatoes. This is our third season this year, and every month we're doing a theme. We are recording this still in March, and March is Cyberpunk. And next month is book adaptations. So we're having a lot of fun with that one as well. So, yeah, it's a good time. And Micah's been on here before as well. So
yep,
folks know Micah. She's great. And we invite guests on. Sam, you're welcome to come on at any point.
Oh, fantastic. I love books, by the way, so I'm up for anything you want.
Yeah, and I also have a newsletter called Monoplex, in which I watch movies and I write about them. And the most recent one is a look back at a couple movies from the 80s, one called Streets of Fire and one called Gleaming the Cube. And it is essentially, the essay is about realizing that everything that you want kind of already exists. You just kind of have to go look for it. So yeah, that's what I do.
Awesome. I mean, like, Below Freezing was so fun. I've been on before, and I've scheduled to record with you guys soon. So looking forward to all that. Like, people should definitely go check that out. It's a great show with it. It's like the step before doing this show, where you actually go and watch the movie, and then this is the one that's like, all right, well, that one was freezer burned. How do we make it not? So it's like we're cousins. Yeah.
Or a reincarnation of each other that someone is going to...
Yeah, we are the recurrence of Below Freezing.
Yeah. One day we will all ascend.
Sam, what do you have going on?
I'm here. Find me here. And any complaints, send them to Case. And you can find Case?
Yes, you can find me on Twitter at Case Aiken. You can find the podcast at Another Pass. And yeah, you can find stuff that we work on at certainpov.com. We've got a lot of great shows. I work on 2 other ones, Men of Steel, which is the Superman Appreciation podcast, and Scruffy Nerf Herders, which is our Star Wars Dungeons and Dragons game that I've been running, doing like little side stories with all the hosts of different podcasts. It's been a great old time, but if those are your jam, check it out. It's all at certainpov.com. Also at certainpov.com, you can find a link to our Discord server. We are having this call right now on Discord, but just come, hang out. We share memes, we chat. When this drops, we will be at the very end of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So come, talk about your spoiler thoughts on that one. We've got all kinds of conversations because we've got all kinds of shows. So it's a great network. Come check it out. Sam, take us home.
Next time on this show, we'll be talking about Highlander 2, The Quickening. But until then, if you enjoyed the show, pass it on.
Thanks for listening to Certain Point of View's Another Pass podcast. Don't miss an episode. Just subscribe and review the show on iTunes. Just go to certainpov.com.
All right, so let's get into it. We'll do a clap to sync up, and then I will start us off.
Okay. Because you were asking us about it, and I thought we were already recording. I was like, "Oops! Oh no!"
No. So if you haven't been recording,
Panic.
I really don't like walking into an episode and having someone have a totally different opinion of the movie than I was expecting.
Heard. That makes sense.
It sometimes throws me off a little bit because sometimes we'll have energy being like, I can't wait to nitpick about these things. And then it's like, no, I fucking loved it. And I was like, fuck.
That makes sense. But I am recording now,
Yeah.
so we can.
Okay.
I'm ready to clap when everyone's ready to clap. Do commercial time.
Commercial time.
Yeah,
Watch this. Listen to the show.
You can
not
literally
watch it,
keep
God.
that and turn it into a jingle. You have my permission.
And also, Matt, you're welcome for all the space for the ad.
Hi, Matt.
I was just like, if this is a long ad, Matt's got plenty of stuff to cut out.
Hello and welcome to Massively Affected, where I, Josh Silverman, bring on a guest and ask them the not-so-simple question, why Mass Effect? Massively Affected is a podcast dedicated to exploring our personal legacies with Mass Effect. From our origin stories with the series to the impact it had on our lives, everything is on the table when it comes to the series, which includes the trilogy, Andromeda, books, comics, fanfics, and whatever else the future may hold. During the debut first season, I was joined by Reignite's own Matt Storm, as well as a cavalcade of amazing guests, including Kate Sanchez from But Why Though, Greg Haynes of Able Gamers, Ken the Shepherd of Fanbyte and Normandy FM, and many more wonderful guests with Mass Effect stories to tell. Each episode dives into the experience of a guest and myself, and I hope you join us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you may find podcasts. You can share your own stories and find the show on Twitter by searching @MassAffectedPod.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.